I've been teaching social skills professionally for 20 years. So let me lay what might be an unpleasant truth on you right here. The vast majority of people who try to improve their charisma, their social skills, will quite simply fail and give up completely within 6 months. And this probably includes you as well. In my experience, there's one big reason why this happens. I'm about to tell you what that is in this video. Now, many students that I get on my bootcamp programs, my live in-field programs, they sort of seem to be like locked into certain ways of behaving. And it seems very often as though they're incapable of even following basic fucking instructions. These are otherwise completely intelligent people. Sometimes they get doctors, lawyers, people from all walks of life. They're smart people, but they can't seem to do simple things. One example of this, I tell a guy, you need to smile more. When you're going up, you have this sort of impassive face, and it's just not very compelling. It's just not very interesting. It's quite simply put, not very attractive. People are not going to pay attention to you. It's fucking boring. They're going to ignore you. Okay, so just smile more. Easy enough, right? Wrong. They simply cannot do it. They'll go in, maybe they'll smile a little bit, and then they revert right back to that impassive face that's getting them the blowouts, the blow-offs. And this will go on, and I'll just keep reiterating the instruction again and again. Okay, you're still not smiling. Okay, smile a little more. Look at my assistant's face when he's in the set, right? He's got this vital, engaged look, right? His eyes are bright. It's communicating packets of emotional information the entire time. He's engaged. He's anticipating. They're smiling, they're constantly laughing, having fun. At least plaster a fake smile on your face, bare minimum, because motion creates emotion. And maybe if you just adopt the physical mannerisms, maybe you'll actually start to feel the fun. Okay, and you're trying all these different angles of getting at it, but they just can't do it. And then by the third day, they're still not doing it. And at that point, I might start to get a little frustrated. Yo, snap out of it, motherfucker, because it's the last day. If you can't do it now, what are you going to do tomorrow when I'm not here? Crawling up your ass, reiterating this constantly. I'm not getting mad at the individuals because I understand that when that happens, they're bumping up, it's their conditioning that's inhibiting them from behaving in that way, right? Be very careful with your uses of energy. Don't show emotions, particularly in the face. This can make you vulnerable. This can be dangerous. What you don't show can't hurt you. I understand all that. The social conditioning is coming into play and inhibiting them from taking the actions and behaving in the ways that would get them the results. So again, I'm not getting mad at the individuals. I'm getting mad at the conditioning. But you can see how it is a bit frustrating as a coach to be constantly reiterating something to somebody that's a very simple thing that's going to get them a better result, and 3 days in, they're still not doing it. Some of these guys even run off the program. They just run off the program. This seems almost insane to me. It might seem insane to you. You've invested all of these resources to be at this program. You've possibly flown in, you've got lodgings, and then you just disappear without telling anyone. You disappear into the crowd, run off down the street, and then I'm texting the person, I'm calling them, I'm like, hey, where'd you go? Come back, it's not over. Don't throw in the towel quite yet. But they're gone. Look, I tried it, but it's just not me. I'm just not a smiley person. So I'll give them an analogy. Like, imagine you went into a boxing gym and you wanted to sign up for some lessons. And they're like, okay, so, they lace you up and da-da-da. Okay, let's do a little bit of light sparring here. Very, very simple stuff. So first things first, put your hands up here. Okay, can you put your hands up by your face? And imagine the student then says, well, that's just not me. I'm just not the kind of person that puts my hands up by my face. I'm not that kind of person. Well, okay, you might not be that kind of person, but that's what this is. And you better figure out how to be that kind of person, or else guess what's going to happen? You're going to get the shit kicked out of you. Boom, boom, boom. You're going to get the dog shit kicked out of you. And that's what's going to happen every single time until you figure out a way to become the kind of person that does put their hands up in front of their face. And again, taking this analogy home, socially, you're going to get the shit kicked out of you if you can't learn how to go up and smile. And again, this isn't necessarily you got to be this clown, this wacky lunatic, but at least be able to plaster a natural seeming smile on your face. I'll tell them this again and again, yet they still can't bring themselves to change the behavior in a way that would get them the better result. And then what happens? Ultimately, they go, well, I guess I'm just not cut out for this. And then they bail. The author Nathaniel Branden called this belief the divine right of stagnation. And he argued that it's a very destructive and irrational belief that stands in direct opposition to the principles of rational self-interest as well as personal growth. So what is this divine right of stagnation? Well, this is the very common belief that people have this fixed, unchangeable essence that can be discovered and understood through introspection. And this belief, very often, it leads to the idea that you need to adhere to your perceived nature and you've got to resist change or growth so you can somehow stay true to yourself. Now, Brandon argued that this view is fundamentally flawed because it fails to recognize the dynamic and evolving nature of human beings. In other words, you are a process, you're not some fixed product. You're constantly evolving, all right? You are not this static entity with a fixed essence, but rather you're a volitional being. You have willpower. You possess the capacity for choice, for growth, for self-improvement. Personal growth and self-realization are essential components to a healthy, thriving life as opposed to a fearful, coping life where you're just going through every day hoping nothing bad happens to you. The pursuit of rational self-interest requires you to continually adapt, to continually learn, to continually evolve, because there are dire psychological consequences that come along with this belief in the divine right of stagnation. It can lead you to become complacent, a passive, weak little pussy, for lack of a better term, and just this person who's fearful of change as you become convinced that you're incapable of altering your nature or improving yourself in any meaningful way. This mindset can be particularly damaging to your self-esteem because it leads to this sense of helplessness where you're constantly doubting yourself. Now, on a broader kind of macro social scale, there are other implications to this divine right of stagnation. It can be used to justify various forms of discrimination, by promoting the idea that certain individuals or groups are somehow inherently inferior or incapable of changing. This belief can be used to rationalize poor treatment towards those deemed lesser by society. But again, on a more personal level, many students feel when I'm asking them to take on these unfamiliar behaviors, let's just say, they feel this confrontation between their self and this character that I'm asking them to portray. Like why do I have to perform for other people to like me? Why do I have to perform to make other people like me? Well, when you interact with other people for the first time, whether you're initiating or not, there is a sense of performance, right? It's a series of events that are governed by conventions or agreements, if you will, between yourself and the audience. And as those stylistic agreements become more complicated, for example, moving from a simple, civil, banal conversation with your neighbor up to actively trying to capture somebody's attention or be seen in a favorable view, all the way up to negotiating business deals or getting romantic with someone you just met in a very short time frame. They demand an increased understanding of the nature of these conventions on the part of not only yourself, but also your audience. I mean, again, we're trying to do the things that are only possible in the movies here. You want gangster results, you got to do gangster shit. Selling and closing sales, introducing romantic angles into a discussion with a new person you just met smoothly and skillfully. These aren't things that most people do in their everyday lives. These kind of skills require technique, they require practice, they require control. So you want to move from an unconscious use of your natural technique to an equally free but increasingly aware use of more formalized techniques, let's just say. In other words, conscious manipulation of your physical, vocal, and emotional language has got to seem unconscious and natural. And this is largely a matter of exercise. I mean, look, we're born with little or no conventions or agreements about our behavior or our lifestyle. We learn how? By observation, by imitation, by correction from the environment, feedback, and practice. We blend our inherent disposition, if you will, with the environment and other people's dispositions, and we ultimately arrive at a personal way of life that we call our personality. And you do the same when you're trying to alter your style of interaction, your style of communication. It's like wearing in new shoes. It's going to be painful at first, but we learn a new style of communication via interaction between our current personality and the altered demands of the outside world that are going to be presented by the types of interactions and outcomes that you want to have. Again, you want certain kind of results, there's going to be additional demands put upon your communication system, and you got to learn how to adopt those. There's a parallel between the original learned naturalness of your developed personality and the process of learning and making natural a new style. So you gotta try on these strange ways of being, so to speak. However, you gotta think of it as play as you go about that, not work. Our work is our play, is our work, and so on. It's not called the work, it's called the game. So to wrap it all up here, belief in this divine right of stagnation is, quite frankly, a destructive and irrational idea that undermines your personal growth and undermines your self-esteem. By embracing the principles of rational self-interest and ultimately recognizing your own dynamic nature, the dynamic nature of human beings, as opposed to viewing yourself as this fixed end product, you can overcome the limitations imposed by this belief, and you can start down a path of growth, self-improvement, and self-realization, and you can avoid being one of those statistics of the vast, vast majority who are just gonna quit and give up after 6 months and be like, it's just not me. I'm just not cut out for this, and then go on living a life of chortliness and loneliness. Now, look, over the years, as I've researched all of this stuff, both in the field as well as academically, I found a lot of the ideas surrounding all of this social skill stuff to be ultimately just these sort of fascinating abstractions. A lot of these subjective, abstract ideas that aren't readily related to or even concerned with pragmatic reality. For most people, all these theories, all these videos and stuff, they rarely move beyond the status of intellectual exercises. Like an interesting intellectual exercise that I can circle jerk and mentally masturbate to and never take action on. So with charisma mentoring, the stuff that I teach on my infield programs, I believe that I've developed a very unique and useful way for you to isolate and analyze for yourself the many components that go into creating charisma and this skill set. It's not one skill, it's a set of skills. And then to take all of those and synthesize them in actually learning how to have more successful interactions and thereby make very powerful business and powerful social connections in very, very short amounts of time. Really, this is about helping you discover your true self. And this kind of stuff, it's for anybody interested in power, love, freedom, play, social interaction, self-awareness, and growth. Now, the exercises that we do on that mentoring, the exercises, the things that I run you through in the live programs, those form the experiential core. We can theorize about this stuff till the cows come home, but you really got to get in the dirt and you got to roll around with those, again, energy uses that you fear until they become very, very familiar. And that confusion, frustration, the mystery is taken out of it. And, as a buddy of mine used to say, fear is just FEAR, false evidence that appears real. And once you roll around with it, that illusion is revealed for what it truly is. And you're like, hey, this isn't so bad. In fact, it's kind of fun, and it gets the result. But again, without direct experience of those energies, all this is just going to stay in the realm of philosophy. It's like, sure, it might be inspiring, it might be accurate, it might be significant, but it's not going to have any living energy. And that's why mentoring is so important, because not only do you get presented a system to employ, you also get accountability and you get guidance. The initial exercises in charisma mentoring, they're devoted mainly to freeing you from inhibitions that block charisma. Like, they're useful, but we've also got to go beyond that, and we got to develop your instrument as a whole. So we'll be like, okay, here's a functioning view of your energy system. Here's how that system works as it communicates in life and performance. Here's how to exercise and develop it. Here are the means to continue to expand your charisma for as long as you like. So if you want to hit the streets with me on boot camp, or you want to join my 8-week mentoring program, the links for both of those programs are in the description below. I'd love to have you on there. And I'll leave you with this. Give up the divine right of stagnation. Embrace the divine right of growth and change. To get them gangster results, you got to do gangster shit. All right, it's been your boy Jeffy, and I'll see you next time. Jeffy.